last year I reviewed 200 movies and thought, that's a record I can hang my non-existent hat on because there's no way I can even come close to equaling that number ever again. No chance in hell. That's what I've got. I've got no chance in hell of ever coming close to 200 movies in a calendar year, which doesn't include all the retro content I did. That's right. I ingested 200 movies released in 2022 in theaters, on streaming services, and nearly drove myself absolutely batshit insane. And don't worry, folks, I did not come close to equaling the number from 2022 this year, because I surpassed it. I took it higher to a place of golden sheets. 276 fucking movies in theaters, on streaming services, a mixture basically of movies that were in my comfort zone, out of my comfort zone, movies that I took a chance on. I was so happy, didn't listen to the voices in my head. They counsel me, they understand, they talk to me. Some end up just kind of being okay, where they weren't really time wasters, but I didn't get much out of them. And then, there were a lot, about 50% of the movies that I absolutely fucking hated for a variety of reasons that were so maliciously malignant, just goddamn putrid, apocalyptically awful. Yeah, let's just get to it. I'm John Wortham with my 25 worst movies of the 2023 list with some honorable mentions. Let me know your honorable mentions and your top 5 or 10 worst movies of 2023 in the comments, please. So, all these movies were reviewed in full on the Real Honest Movie Reviews playlist. Honorable mentions start now. Candy Cane Lane, Eddie Murphy, and a fairly decent cast tried to get through this Amazon original Christmas movie, and it was terrible. The Tutor, toot! It got more ridiculous and stupid as time went on. It wasn't good to begin with. It somehow got worse as it went along and got more jarringly, well, stupid. And I was honestly shocked that this movie ever got released. And the fact that this isn't in my top 25 when I hate it, oh boy. So, Consecration. I was looking forward to this because I had a neat little idea and I ended up just basically shitting the bed. The Black Demon. Totally shit the bed because it was more about, the idea of a shark coming at you for your sins or something. I don't know because it was a bad shark movie. Sadly, not the worst shark movie that'll be on this list. Unwelcome. A neat idea, poor execution. Trinket Box. That somehow managed to forget to pay the lighting bill. Seriously, if you watch this movie, you will think that there's something wrong with your device, your eyes, or you will think that you have gone into the vortex of death. This movie should have been sent into the vortex of death. Disquiet. This really should have been sent into the vortex of death. It was basically a Twilight Zone episode extended to 90 minutes with about enough material for 20 to 25 minutes. The Mother. Jennifer Lopez as an assassin, and that's about it. Heart of Stone, Gal Gadot. I know what her name is. She doesn't deserve to have her name pronounced correctly because she's an idiot. She better hope her looks hold up because acting is not for her. You're killing me. This movie nearly killed me. It somehow managed to have simultaneously bad comedy, bad horror, and really stupid characters, mix it together hard in a blender, spin it around to a beautiful oblivion, rendezvous, and we go to Ghosted. Ghosted it made me not want to see Ana de Armas anymore, and I love Ana de Armas. I would like to see more of Ana de Armas, but I digress. Had 2 leads, including her, and somehow managed to be one of the worst action comedies that you've seen this side of, Shotgun Wedding, which is another honorable mention. Shotgun Wedding did not even make it into the list. The Tank. It's a water tank with a creature. I remember it being bad. I don't remember too much of it, but I remember it having a neat little idea and poor execution. Kill Her Goats. It was a Kickstarter-funded movie that started with halfway decent killings, forgot that there was a killer in it, where you had some borderline porn actresses in there. Nothing wrong with that. You get down however you want and get your money however you need. But, yeah, they could have done more takes for this. And then, finally, we get some goats in it. Sadly, this was not even in my top 25. TMNT Mutant Mayhem. I'm sorry, but this was just not for me, and the bacon, eggs, and cheese thing, whoever came up with that deserves to be run out of town on a train. The Price We Pay. Also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had really, really just not good. The animation was fine, but the style didn't work for me. The Price We Pay was a bunch of idiots getting tortured, and a bunch of torturous idiots torturing us with the fact there was no character development and stuff just happened. The Lurking Fear, $3.5 million for this. I want to know where the other $3.25 million went. Because there's no way they spent all $3.5 million on this movie. Had to have been a tax write-off. Good boy. This movie should have been written off. It's about very, very freaky people. And I'm sorry, but if you're into the stuff that these people are into, you're freaks. Just saying. Yeah, this was terrible. And also, you could have just solved the whole damn thing by hitting the person in the head. You could have. 65. Adam Driver and a girl on a planet with dinosaurs. Gran Turismo. Archie Matawick, I think that's how you say him, and a few other people tried to make this video game simulator driving movie good, but you also had the director of District 9 doing it, Neil Blomkamp, who is my arch nemesis, one of many. And yeah, no, I'm sorry. Not good. Not good at all. So we get Knock at the Cabin. That's final honorable mention. Yeah, M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. Chang, Shabab. Remember when this guy used to make good movies? Yeah, I'll say that again. Batista was great. Rupert Grint tried. And the rest of it, yeah, didn't work because M. Night Shyamalan doesn't know what he's doing anymore. Now let's get to the top 25 now. Again, full reviews of all these are on the Real Honest Movie Reviews playlist. Scream 6. To give you an idea how much I love the Scream movies, I have every single Scream movie. Even Scream 5 or 5 Cream or whatever you call it, that I admit, honestly, maybe I was a little bit too kind to. It's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I will take it over Scream 6. That started with Samara Weaving as the first victim. Sorry, it's been out for a number of months. And the killer reveal absolutely made me laugh because I called it early. It wasn't funny. The new setting was cool. And now with all the stuff that happened with them not wanting to pay Neve Campbell her price and them getting rid of Melissa Barrera for staying up for innocent people being slaughtered, Scream 7 is going to be basically on life support and is probably not going to have much of anything and probably shouldn't after Scream 6. Number 24, Hypnotic. Ben Affleck and others were in this movie that was directed by Robert Rodriguez and didn't make a dime at the box office. It didn't deserve to. It was an attempt to be mind-bendy. The only thing I wanted to bend was a pipe over the head of the people that greenlit this. That would have been a big pipe. A big piping for everybody. Ouch, that would be painful. The Nun 2. Now, I have all the Conjuring Universe movies, even the first Nun, which I did rewatch before this, and I actually watched this movie twice. And the reason that I'm putting it on this list is because I watched it twice. I thought maybe I was in a bad mood. Maybe it really was better than the first Nun. And no, it wasn't. Characters made even dumber decisions. They made Tessa Farmiga just look around like, oh shit, this stuff's actually happening with these magazines. I probably should move, but that would make too much sense. And also the fact that they seem to indicate that we might get a third Nun movie, even though we know how everything happens with Valak the Vile Deceiver. I think that was their name. Yeah, The Nun 2, number 23. Number 22, Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't fucking care if FNAF fans get upset. You can like this. That doesn't mean I have to. It wasn't scary. It wasn't good. Yeah, the costumes look cool. And everything about it was terrible, from plot to horror to everything. It wasn't scary. So, number 21, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Or the Depeter. Yeah, Dracula on a ship, and they seem to imply there was going to be a sequel. The Last Voyage of the Demeter, honestly, was one that I had completely forgotten came out. And I wish that this movie hadn't come out. Because it wasn't horrifying. The setting was halfway okay. But it ended up just being one of those movies where you're questioning, why the fuck am I watching this? What is going on here? Yeah, it wasn't scary. It wasn't suspenseful. We all knew how it was going to end. And God forbid if they do a sequel. The movie didn't do that well, so who the hell knows. Number 20, Wish. God, Disney just had a fucking shit year because they decided to do stuff like this. They did do Elemental, which actually wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty good overall. But Wish, just the animation just was not good. They spent $200 million on this. None of the songs were good. Some of the songs were some of the worst that Disney has included in the movie in a while. This was no Encanto. And yeah, the whole reveal of, the main heroine, and what she was going to end up becoming was something you could have seen coming from a mile away. Wish is really not very good. It's not even the worst entry for Disney on this list, though. Number 19, Meg 2, The Trench. Shut up, the Meg 2. I'm putting this here in part because somebody from Warner Bros. Decided to copyright my review, which I won, by the way, because I did not include any footage or anything else that they could have copyrighted. I just talked about the fact that this movie was absolute goddamn dog shit. Once it got going, you didn't care. Once it even got to the silly shark action. Because half of this movie was just people underwater, obviously, when you have something called the Meg 2. But it was this weird espionage type plot fighting with people that were trying to steal shit. Instead of, about the titular Meg. Tit. But yeah, Meg 2. Absolutely terrible. The worst shark movie. Worse than The Black Demon only because this had more money behind it and should have known better. We get to number 18. There's something wrong with the children. There is something wrong with this movie. Some of these movies I talked about on my best and worst horror movies lists, and also most surprising, most disappointing lists. I've done a lot of movie lists because I wanted to cover every single thing. And yeah, there's something wrong with the children. Parents don't watch their children. They end up becoming possessed by shit. And it somehow gets even dumber as time goes on. Not the worst movie with children in the title, if you know what I mean. Number 17, Bunker. This movie had a shoestring budget, had people that were pretending they were World War II soldiers, not getting their uniforms dirty, not getting covered in any blood or sweat or whatever, going across this really, really dangerous field. And when movies have micro budgets, that's fine. But if you're going to make a movie like this, just leave it in the drafts until you can get more money, because this was abysmal. Was absolutely abysmal. Number 16, White Men Can't Jump. I hate Jack Harlow, by the way, because of this movie. I didn't even know who the fuck Jack Harlow was. Allegedly, he's a rapper. He's allegedly an actor, and he's not good at either. Besides that, the movie's just an unnecessary remake. It was unfunny. It was just totally, totally pointless. And I sat down and watched this. After rewatching the original, which I admit was not necessarily the best movie, but at least Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes had good chemistry, and you got to see Rosie Perez. That was nice. This movie somehow managed to make even the dumbest parts of that movie seem great in comparison. Number 15, Indiana Jones 5. Yeah, this was worse than Indiana Jones 4. And that's saying something, because I did not think that anything could be worse than Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Or the Kingdom of the Crystal Hip, because that's basically what Harrison Ford has now. And there's nothing wrong with having older people in movies and doing stuff, but goddamn, they spent nearly $300 million on this. And the special effects looked awful. The green screen effects looked awful. Had one of the worst, concluding parts that I've ever seen. I don't even want to say ending, because it wasn't exactly the ending. It tied into the ending. But this better be the last Indiana Jones movie. 1, Harrison Ford can't go anymore. 2, after this botch fest, after this shit fest, there's no way they can do another one. Maybe they can reboot it in 40 years when I'm hopefully off this goddamn earth. But goddamn, Indiana Jones 5 was terrible. Let's get to number 14, Freelance. John Cena, Alison Brie, who's fucking gorgeous, and a few other people in this attempted action comedy where I kind of wish I couldn't see John Cena in this. This was a sneak peek, a special screening of a movie where I actually had to sit in another seat because I was next to somebody that was really, really, they couldn't fit in their seat, shall we say, and they were very, very, they didn't smell good. It was very uncomfortable. Freelance was more uncomfortable, though, and it was one of those movies where I questioned, why didn't this go straight to streaming? Because I don't know how much this movie made. I don't know how much this movie cost. But they would have been better off just writing this thing off, because the green screen effects, the shootouts, all this stuff. John Cena, who, he's been in better movies than this. Alison Brie, who has been in better movies than this. And I love seeing Alison Brie on my screen. And nowhere else I would prefer. But she couldn't make this work. Nobody can make this work. And also, it just completely just threw away a lot of the, the basic story that it had. It also had the blonde from ATM, whose name escapes me right now. She wasn't given much to do. Yeah, the Freelance should have just been free-basted or put out in the free range. And then Old Yellard. So let's get to number 13, The Little Mermaid. Okay, Halle Bailey was a good singer in this, I will say that much. She commanded the screen as Ariel. Everything else was terrible. This was a desecration, a violation on every level of the 1989 animated version. Javier Bardem couldn't save it. the guy from Hamilton, David something. I'm going blank because I'm so goddamn pissed off. Who played Sebastian? Aquafina rapping as Scuttle. And after watching Renfield, I was like, okay, maybe Aquafina isn't all that bad. No, she is. She is. Yeah, The Little Mermaid was really, really bad. I got some hate for saying that it wasn't very good. You guys can like it all you damn well want. And the comment box is there as far as me not caring for some of these movies. But god damn it, The Little Mermaid was just so goddamn terrible. And pretty much the worst offering that Disney had this year. And that's saying something because they offered a lot of bad shit last year. They offered some good shit last year. Encanto, this wasn't even as good as the Aladdin movie. The live action Aladdin. I don't know about the live action Lion King. I never got around to it. I may have to watch it at some point, even though I know how it ends and how it goes. And I don't really think there was a reason to do a live action version, even though I understand. The Little Mermaid, terrible. Halle did fine. Halle shouldn't have gotten the hate that she got at all. You can say that she maybe wasn't the best in the movie, that's fine, but people attach her race and the fact, oh, a black mermaid, no, a black Ariel. Who fucking cares? Judge it by the fact that it was a terrible movie. Number 12, Sleeping Beauty. Speaking of terrible, I don't know what planet these people came from, but send them back. There were a few horrifying moments, and the rest of it involved scene after scene after scene of people acting really goddamn bad, doing everything in one take, and somehow making each scene worse than the previous one. Also had terrible special effects. And something about a mad scientist. And ghostly brides, I think. Honestly, I kind of put this out of my mind. It was a to-be original, but I do remember it being terrible. And then we get to number 11, Knights of the Zodiac. Yeah, apparently it's based on some anime, manga, whatever. $60 million. Sean Bean, Famke Johnson, who I still would in a heartbeat. She looks great. But this movie belonged about, 20 years in the past, maybe 25 years in the past. This seemed like something from at least the early 2000s as far as special effects, as far as story. This is worse than Dragon Ball Evolution. I will stand by that. And it didn't deserve to make any money in theaters. I watched a screening of this in Everett. I actually drove a round trip about an hour to watch this. And it ended up being such a waste of goddamn time. I think this movie made $2 million, $3 million in theaters. And it didn't even deserve to make that much. And I do not know what they were thinking here. There were moments in this movie that made me think, no one has ever seen a movie and they just decided to throw the characters out there and just say, yeah, act like idiots. And they also implied they're going to get a sequel. That's adorable that you think that not only this movie deserves $60 million for its budget, but that it's going to get a sequel. Number 10, The Creator. I originally had this a lot lower on my list, but upon further reflection, yes, it's an original idea. Yes, there are some cool moments as far as visuals, and it's also soulless and has no character and no emotional depth and nothing to it. And from the director of Rogue One, I was excited for this. I originally wasn't, and then I got more and more into it and thought, I'm going to give it a shot. And within the first hour, I said, well, this movie's fucked. Actually, I lie. Within the first 40 minutes. I lie again, it was within the beginning. The beginning of it, I'm like, okay. Yeah, I know exactly how this is going to go. And the actors are sleepwalking through this stuff. It looked cool at times, but it was not good. And God forbid if they try to get the money to do a sequel. They probably won't because it didn't do all that well at the box office. And I'm sorry. I mean, I hope everybody in the movie can get more work because they were trying. But this was agonizing, terrible. And The Creator was just really bad. Now, number 9, Pet Sematary Bloodlines. This being number 9 proves that there was a lot of shit this year. Paramount Plus exclusive, a prequel to Pet Sematary that nobody asked for, and it somehow managed to actually be worse than the worst Pet Sematary sequel, which I believe is only Pet Sematary 2. I don't think they did anything after Pet Sematary 2, Electric Pet Sematary Lou, which sounds like Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. Or Prom Night 2, Hello, Mary Lou. Pet Sematary Bloodlines had David Duchovny, had others, and everybody knew about the powers of the graveyard. And they tried to tell a backstory, and nobody cared. And nobody cared about any of the characters, and everybody was just dumb. So nefarious, right-wing crackpot bullshit that had Glenn Beck in it. This really should have been number 1 just for the fact that it was so in your face with right-wing religious crackpot stuff. And let's just say right now, this kind of religious stuff is bullshit. But It's only number 8 because there were other movies that offended me a whole lot more. But I put this in the top 10. Honestly, as far as a concept, it was what it was. But it was just such a bad movie. It did not deserve to make. I actually rented this movie. I actually paid money to rent this. I regret doing that because I didn't want to put any money in these crackpot directors' pockets. But whatever, I got some enjoyment out of making fun of it. It deserves to be made fun of. But only watch this if it's on a streaming service and if you have some buddies and want to make fun of it. Now let's get to number 7, The Devil Conspiracy. This originally should have been my top 3. The fact that it came out in January and they thought, let's just shove it out and everybody will forget about it. Oh, ho, ho, I keep a list of every single movie I've reviewed, and I'm not going to do that. The Devil Conspiracy is a mess of horror, sci-fi, and the Archangel Michael, and heaven and hell, and heaven is a place on earth. Oh, Belinda Carlisle, I still would. It's an absolute mess and makes no sense. I mean, it somehow manages to defy the low expectations and defy physics and defy reality multiple times. And I'm watching this just baffled. Thankfully, I was pretty much in the theater by myself. Like, there were other people in there, but I was in an area by myself and could basically react like, that's how I was reacting most of the time. Like, I was doing this. Like, who thought this was a good idea? And I don't know how much this movie costs, 30, 50, 60 million dollars. But Jesus Christ, this is another one like Knights of the Zodiac that should have come out in the early 2000s. Now we get to Fear. That really should have been my number 1 choice, but my oh my, I'll tell you why that wasn't the case later. Fear is late 90s horror. It actually was kind of like if you took House on Haunted Hill, the remake as a concept, and took all the personality out of it, and added idiots to it. And I mean just as characters. I don't mean the actors. The actors tried their best. But it was about studying the fears of people. And then the fear comes back to haunt them. And yeah. Fear was terrible. Really, really terrible. I did this and Infinity Pool. Back to back, I believe. Now, Infinity Pool was pretty good. And I encourage you guys to check that out, as weird as it was. Fear, not so much. The poster made me think that it was going to be bad, and the poster didn't prepare me enough. Begin not being prepared. Number 5, Quasi. The people that did Super Troopers and other stuff, yeah, end it. Just end it. Stop. Don't do this anymore, you fucking assholes. Like, God, this was the most unfunny comedy of the fucking year. Whoever thought this was a good idea, I don't know what the fuck. I paused it multiple times. I was questioning if I wanted to keep reviewing movies. Quasi is terrible. It had no redeeming qualities about it. Everybody was a shitbag of a character. Nothing was good. Nothing was funny. It's top 5 worst of the year for a reason. Actually, several reasons. Number 4, Children of the Corn. I told you when I reviewed, or when I talked about there's something wrong with the children, that it wasn't the worst movie with the children in the title, and here you go. Elena Kampalapalapalapa, this, or however the hell you say her goddamn name, the one from Wifelike, she is trying to take down some children. They're led by a girl, not Malachi, or Zebekiah, or Jacob Kai, or whatever the fuck. Fields get burned in Nebraska. And children get upset and take over because they're possessed by drinking water, demonic possession, or, I honestly kind of really don't care anymore. I mean, I remember when I reviewed it what the reason was, and I've just honestly gone blank because I pushed this movie out of my fucking mind. It was terrible. The violence was terrible. Every character deserved to die terribly. And the fact that it even somehow sat on the shelf for 3 years, and they thought it was a good idea to put this out on a streaming. They gave this a brief theatrical release, and then somehow thought it was good enough to put on Shudder. Shudder has its issues, but God, Children of the Corn was terrible. Number 3, Leave the World Behind. Spoiler, this actually was in the running for my worst movie of the year until the next 2. But I actually did a coin flip originally. This was originally going to be number 2. Leave the World Behind has Julia Roberts, has Ethan Hawke, has various other people. The guy from Moonlight, whatever Ali, M. Ali is what I call him because I always screw up his first name. Had a good cast and no execution, except the movie deserved to be executed publicly in front of the people that greenlit it. Because there is no way that this movie could have been seen as a good idea. It was $100-some-odd million thrown towards this. It was worse than The Happening. I did a long review of it. Check it out. Number 2, and it was so close between this and number 1, The Exorcist Believer. Ellen Bernstein was brought back for this and was instantly wasted, and I think everybody that made this was wasted. Fuck you, David Gordon Green. You piece of shit, you motherfucker. How dare you ruin first the Halloween franchise, and now you're going to ruin this. The Exorcist, I'm not even the biggest fan of The Exorcist, and The Exorcist Believer made me think, my God, I feel so bad for the first Exorcist. You thought The Exorcist 2 Heretic was bad, or Exorcist 2 The Heretic was bad. No, this is worse. This is a lot worse. And number 1, it's about as late of an entry as we can get. Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire. Featuring no Child of Fire, by the way. Check out my review. That's all I have to say about that. Zack Snyder deserves to be ran out of Hollywood and never allowed to make a film anywhere again. What are your worst movie choices in the comments? Let me know. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.